Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to cross the Øresund once again. We're going to go back to Copenhagen in Denmark, one of the best beer cities in the world these days in my opinion, and we're revisiting one of the kind of premier Danish craft breweries at the moment. These guys have got a hell of a reputation and it's quite, rightly earned in my opinion. I've had some very good experiences with these guys before. So for this review then, we are going to return to Gamma Brewing Company, and today we're having a taste of their Freak Wave, which is another one of their New England IPAs, hazy IPAs, whatever you want to call it. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and this one was released as part of the local and småskaligt assortment in Systembolaget here in Sweden on the 2nd or 3rd of March 2020. And it's quite interesting because normally the local and småskaligt is always Swedish breweries, but I've noticed that now we're getting some Gamma stuff in, and I'm not sure if that's only in Skåne because that's obviously right next to Denmark, but you do get the same with Amundsen and Lervig as well. Some of the Amundsen and Lervig beers are coming into Sweden too, and I'm not sure if that's just the areas around the Norwegian borders, but obviously you can order them throughout the whole country. So we are getting a few Danish and Swedish beers coming in too, so hopefully we start to get some more Finnish and Icelandic things as well. Some Faroese and Greenlandic stuff would be interesting as well. So that's an interesting point. I always talk about the local Swedish release at the start of the month, but there are a few other things kind of coming through that as well. But regardless, very cool to return to Gamma Brewing Company once again. I always used to have to go to Kiosk and get one of these beers to bring back for you every so often, but if they're coming over here to Sweden now, that's a very, very good step forward. This must be my 10th or 11th review from this brewery now, but if you are interested in hazy IPAs, then Gamma are definitely one that you want to check out. They do, in the past, they have done some very good West Coast IPAs, and you also saw me review the Fervent Fervor recently, which was just a monster of an imperial stout actually. So this brewery, if they want to try different styles, they are pretty good at it. But one of the probably one of the premier Danish craft breweries these days. So if you're interested in Danish beer, Gamma are one that you want to check out. Ale Farm, Dry and Bitter, Amar Bryghus, Mikkeller Toil of course are the better known ones. Yeah, there's some great Danish beer over there just now. Slowburn are a brewery that are up on, are rising as well at the moment too. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. Always cool to review a beer from Gamma Brewing Company. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery again before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Gamma Brewing Company before. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Danish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Gamma Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So Gamma Brewing Company was founded back in 2015 by 4 friends in Copenhagen, and they were bartenders in the various beer bars around the city, and they basically just talked about how it would be cool one day to have their own brewery, and then eventually it came to fruition. So in the early stages they took in another co-owner. So the team at the brewery is now Jakob, Anders, Jesper, Koy and Nick, and all of these guys had a little bit of home brewing experience, and 2 of them had also worked at Ulsnedkeren in Copenhagen, who purchased the former Stronzo brewery in Gørløse, which went on to become Ølkollektivet. But apparently they were invited to join Ølkollektivet, and they got a very good deal on a 20 hectolitre tank, and they started the brewery without any experience of having run their own business. But it went very, very well for them though. They've expanded twice now, and maybe even a 3rd time I think actually, and they now produce around 500 hectolitres of beer per year, and they export to Scotland, England, Germany, the Netherlands, over here to Sweden. Now I think some of the beers are starting to get up to Norway as well, but I'm not sure how further afield they are getting than that, but I'm sure that will come in time. And one of the co-owners is also the co-owner of Ulsnedkeren bar in Aarhus as well. But Ølkollektivet of course is home to Ulsnedkeren, Gamma Brewing and Dry and Bitter, and they also brewed the Bad Seed beers under license for a little while before they got their own brewery, which is up by I want to say it's up by Albury now, either that or it's over by Aarhus, I always forget. But they were brewing some beers, Ghost Brewing and also Rooster were brewing their beers at Ulcolectivit for a while as well, but they've since moved on, so it's only Gamma and Dry and Bitter, and I think Ulsnedkeren, of course, that are brewing their beers at Ulcolectivit now, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about Gamma Brewing Company for the moment. A very prolific brewery as well. They've always got a couple of new IPAs come out each month, and every so often you do get things like the Fervent Fervour Imperial Stout and stuff too, which is definitely worth checking out. So yeah, a brewery that I always look out for when I go over to Copenhagen. I always try to bring at least one thing back from Gamma Brewing Company when I head over there. Dry and Bitter and Ale Farm are the other ones that I like to look out for as well. And Slow Burn, as I mentioned earlier, are another Danish brewery who I think are quite up and coming. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a look at the beer itself then. So this beer is 6.5% alcohol, New England Hazy Style IPA. The hops in this are Cashmere, Citra, Mosaic, and I think that's it. And then the malt base is Pilsner, Carapils and Oats, and it's got a yeast strain of WLP 066. So yeah, this should be really interesting. We can get rid of the brewery notes now and focus on the beer. So Cashmere, of course, is a hop that you don't come across too often. I've had it in 2 beers so far, and that was the Duvel triple hop Cashmere, and also one from Green Gold Brewing down in Slovenia, which I think it was just called Cashmere. And it's a beautiful hop though. It gives you a little bit of like melon and lemon and lime, so it's really interesting. So I'm curious to see how it comes out with the Citra and Mosaic in this one. I think it will be really quite interesting actually. So yeah, as you can see, the artwork on this one is really pretty cool actually. It's the sort of artwork that would make an old tube TV go absolutely off its nut, as we would say, but I think it's pretty damn cool. I like the sort of the gamma, of course, the gamma waves, the gamma radiation and things. There you can see that's also in the symbol. I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, this one's a 440ml can. I think this cost like 50 Swedish crowns, so if you translate that into Danish, that's going to be about 40 Danish crowns. So that will be roughly about €5 a can, something like that, £4.50. So Systembolaget, pretty damn good prices, I have to say. So without further ado, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting then. I'm really curious to see what this one has in store for us. So yeah, I'm curious to see how big the lemon limey qualities are in this one, because obviously Citra can give you some lemon limey notes depending on what it's mixed with. So yeah, but you know, knowing Gamma, it will be pretty damn good. So yeah, as you can see with this one, it's poured a lovely murky. This one's actually one of the darker yellow ones that you're going to come across. So this one is a little bit more like a kind of peach juice or something like that. Definitely a little bit of that darker, more murky yellow colour to it. The head on this one is a solid finger, and I would say it's not quite perfect white. It is more of a creamy kind of coloured head, so slightly off-white head. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. There are a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of the head there. But overall, it looks pretty much as you would expect from a kind of hazy New England style IPA these days. But yeah, it looks very nice, and I can say straight away some of these lovely fruity notes are coming out of this. So let's have a look at the aroma and just see how we get on. But nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance. Oh, this one actually, on the aroma, this smells a little bit more kind of farmhousey. And I think I might have said the same about the last, the Chelate that I reviewed for you a few videos back. It did smell, I'm sure it did smell a little bit more kind of farmhousey, but then I'm sure that used that WLP 66 yeast as well. So that would make sense. So yeah, it has a little bit of that Alchemist Brewing sort of farmhousey note to it. You've got a little bit of that herbal, vegetally, woody kind of thing forming the linchpin of the beer. But of course, beside that, you do get some of the creamy oats. You do get a little bit of the kind of wheaty bite to the beer as well. And there's a wee bit of a biscuity sweetness too, which will come from the fact that they've used Carapils in this one. This will be quite a crisp IPA, I think. If they're using Pilsner and Carapils malt in this one, then yeah, so if they've got wheat and oats in there, I would think too, just to kind of give you the bigger body right enough. But I think this one will be really pretty nice. So yeah, the malt base is pretty, as I say, it's the yeast, I'm saying malt base, it's the yeast that's going to give you these kind of woody, herbally, vegetally type notes. But then on top of that you get some of the wheaty notes, you get some of the oaty creaminess, and you get a little bit of that biscuity sweetness. The more you smell of this beer, I think, the sweeter it becomes. So yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, there's a wee bit of earthiness in there, which I think will be mosaic, but it doesn't quite smell as strong to be mosaic. I'm wondering if there might be another hop in there. But yeah, on the green side of this beer, there is a little bit of floral quality, but I would say this one leans more towards the grassiness. But the fruits that come out of this, they come across as a little bit wetter and more oily almost compared to some of the other sort of hazy New England style IPAs that I've come across. But to be more specific with the fruits, there is definitely a bit of that kind of juicy mango-y note in there that you expect. This beer, it really does smell wet to me. It smells like it's got a wet, grassy kind of vibe to it, which is interesting. But you definitely have a lemon-limey quality there. I say it leans a bit more towards the limey note, but you do get a wee bit of lemony punchiness to it, or pungency, which is interesting. So juicy mangoes. You can pick up the melon in there as well, you know, from the cashmere. The melon's coming out really nicely. But I want to say, at the front of the nose, there is definitely a little bit of that juicy, tangerine-y, orangey thing too, which is interesting. But yeah, for me, it's the mangoes and the melony notes that you get out of this are very nice, and you've also got that kind of limey quality as well. So the cashmere is coming out in this one beautifully, and I think you have got a wee bit of the mosaic-y and citry notes in this one. I've got some awful feeling in my head that I might have mixed the hops up in this one with it being mosaic, but this beer, in terms of its aroma, even if I have mixed it up, it's definitely got a little bit of a kind of orangey quality to it, which is, you know, you'd expect a bit of tangerine and orange from thing. But the more and more I smell of this beer and the more I shake it up, the more you start to get these kind of farmhousey, herbally, vegetally kind of things out of the aroma. It's interesting. I've always felt that some of the more farmhousey yeasts, they give you the smell, like if you have a recycle bin and you put potato peelings and stuff in it, in some ways it reminds me of how your recycle bin smells after a couple of days actually. So I've always had a sort of mixed bag feeling about how some of these farmhousey yeasts smell, to be honest, but they always come out very nicely in the flavour. The WLP yeast is a very nice yeast to use in these New England IPAs. But yeah, without further ado then, let's have a taste of this one. So this one is the Freak Wave 6.5% New England IPA, hazy IPA, whatever you want to call it, from Gamma Brewing Company in Görløse, just to the north of Copenhagen. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. Yeah, that's really nice. It is, you know, I was saying earlier this would be quite a crisp New England IPA, and it definitely is. I'm wondering where they've got this trend from with these big hazy beers. That it really seems to be a Scandinavian thing, that they're sort of thinning the mouthfeel out a little bit and trying to give you that more kind of, to give you a more crisp quality out of them. I'm wondering where that's come from exactly, and it's strange too, because a lot of the breweries now, a lot of the very small breweries are starting to have a go at Pilsners and Schwarzbiers and Dunkels and stuff like this, so there does seem to be a bit of a movement towards lagers making a resurgence here in Sweden at least. I'm not sure about Denmark or Norway, come to think of it, but this, in terms of a New England IPA, this one is really nice, and the crisp mouthfeel I think suits it quite well. I noticed the same, to be honest, with Amundsen in Norway. Their beers are getting a little bit crisper, come to think of it. But this one is nice. The juiciness you get out of this in the beginning, it really has that a kind of pungent bite to it almost. So yeah, but I mean, this is another lovely beer from Gamma, and it's not a surprise. I know this brewery fairly well, I'd say, 10, 11, 12 reviews, something like that, and I've never had a bad beer from them. They always do some really damn solid stuff actually, and this one, I think I'm getting this one just in its prime. As I've always said with these New England hazy beers. You need to let these sit in the can for maybe about 2 weeks, somewhere between 2 and 3 weeks, and that's when you'll really get them in the prime. If you drink these too early, they taste like green, basically. They just have a bit of burn to them. You have to really let them mellow out just for a week or two before you try them. But this is in really good shape just now. So yeah, let's break down the flavour then. Middle of your palate, you can feel a little bit of that kind of grainy, woody, farmhousey type flavour. That's what's blanketing the middle of your tongue. As you come further forward, you do get a bit of an oaty kind of creaminess out of this one. There's not a wheatiness to this one overly. It does have a bit of a kind of white bready quality towards the back of the palate, so it's interesting that there was a sort of wheaty aroma to the flavour. I always find that wheat comes out a little bit further back on the palate and you get some of the bitiness out of it, but this one's really smooth and sort of white bready rather than being a bit more bitey and wheaty. If you go to the very centre of your palate, you do get a little bit of that kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity type flavour to this beer, and it sweetens up the further you go into the aftertaste as well, actually. But yeah, it really is nice, this one. The way the fruits come out in this beer is quite nice. It comes across as quite, I don't know if zesty is the right word. It's not quite as tingly as some of the more zesty IPAs that I've come across, but the way the fruits come out in this is very, very nice. And this is one of the reasons why you play around with the different hops and stuff like that, because obviously Gamma Brewing will have a very good base for their New England IPAs, because they do that many of them, and a lot of the time it will just be playing around with hops and a little bit of malt and things like that. But this one is definitely one of the more, it's got a little bit more pungency to it than some of the other ones that I've come across. This one does lean more towards that citrusy side of things rather than the tropical end of the spectrum, and that's the great thing about the Cashmere hop. It's very, it really is quite an interesting one, that. On the hoppy side of things then, the malt base, as I say, is fairly straightforward. The malt and yeasty side of things, it's got the yeasty kind of farmhousey qualities, that blankets the middle of your palate. Further back it's a bit more bready, a little bit further forward it's more kind of oaty, and it's not quite as creamy as some of the ones you're going to come across. Then in the middle of the palate you've got a bit of that biscuity note. If you go to the front corners of your palate and move in, you will notice some kind of woody undertones to this beer as well. Back corners of the palate, you've got a lovely little bit of earthiness there. As you come further forward on the side of the tongue, it gets a little bit more floral, but I think the green side of this beer really leans towards the kind of more grassy part of the spectrum. Actually, it's a little bit more kind of floral and grassy, and in my mind, more grassy. I'm saying floral and grassy. It really is a bit more kind of grassy and zesty, to be honest with you. And then the fruity esters that are coming out of this beer, they just roll out of the tongue in that little oily bubble that you get right behind the very tip of the palate. So yeah, if you go towards the back of that oily bubble, then you get a little bit of a kind of, there is a wee touch of a kind of passion fruity note there, but that's very, very minimal. So that darker kind of tropical fruit that you can get from Citra, but as you come further forward from that, you really start to get more kind of, you do get a sort of the mango-y notes from the Citra as well, but you can feel the melon sort of interacting with that. The melon comes across as being quite pungent, and it comes out and it sort of oils up the further you go into the aftertaste too, which is quite interesting. I want to say there's a wee touch of an orangey kind of tangerine note to this one, but then as you move right out towards the kind of front tip of your tongue, you can really feel the mix of lemon and lime. It's kind of sitting there, and then you've got the grassiness from the hops on the very edge of your tongue too. So the tip of your tongue is quite sort of zesty and pungent in this one, in my mind, and the fruits actually come across. The more that I drink this beer, the more that I think the fruits are quite oily, but that really suits it. You start to get the melony notes out a bit more, and it makes the mango come across in a slightly different way, and I think the sort of tangerine oranges are pushing their way out of this one a little bit more as well. The further you go into the aftertaste, it's that sort of lemony, limey, grassy, zesty sort of thing that's lingering there, but you can also get this melony, oily quality to the beer as well. So I mean, this is a really interesting one. This IPA really takes a different approach to a number of the other ones that I've had recently. And this is what I like. I like it when you get beers that stand out a wee bit, and this one really does. As I said earlier, I'm not sure when this one would have been released in Denmark, but you know, the thing is, I don't know if Systembolaget these days are doing it, that they tell Gamma Brewing, oh, you've got this slot, send us an IPA at this ABV, and they can choose what one they do, or whether they have to plan this a year in advance, as they always used to have to. So I'm not sure exactly. Maybe this was released about a year ago in Denmark, but it'll be quite cool if we are getting more Gamma beers, which is great. I will start to get some of the ones that I've missed actually, which should be really quite nice. So we'll just keep an eye on that. That's pretty awesome, I have to say. But this one certainly takes a different approach to the other Gamma ones that I've had, and a number of other IPAs generally that I've had recently. So I like this. Try this one if you get the chance. But yeah, it really is a little bit more kind of citrusy, this one, but at the same time, the more you kind of go into the aftertaste, you start to get a wee bit more of the kind of tropically notes pushing their way out as well. But overall, it's just another very, very solid IPA from Gamma Brewing Company. And if you know this brewery, you're not going to expect any less. I do find this one a little bit crisper than some of the other ones that they've done, and it's not got the wheaty bite that some of them might have either, actually. But yeah, it's an awesome beer, this, and I would recommend that you try it if you get the chance. In terms of the mouthfeel, I would say that this one is quite this one's quite mid-bodied. The carbonation is very smooth. Overall, it is quite a smooth mouthfeel, but there is a bit of an element of oiliness to this one, and that is reflected in the way the fruity characters come out. Hoppy bitterness, it's a kind of standard 30-40-ish IBU beer, this one. I wouldn't say it's any more than that. And I'm thinking, you know, Citra is about 11% alpha acid. Mosaic, if I have remembered rightly that it's Mosaic that's in this one, that's about 14%. Cashmere, I think Cashmere is around the sort of 13-ish mark, if I remember rightly. So you do get a bit of that kind of bitterness out of it, and that would explain some of the nice zesty qualities, your high alpha acid contents. But generally, yeah, the fruitiness in this beer is quite big and oily, and I think that suits the type of fruity flavours you're getting out of it, but it does kind of smoothen up a little bit later and become a wee bit more sort of juicy. The further you go into the aftertaste, it does definitely become a bit more juicy. Malt base, like I said, quite smooth. The yeasty quality is playing a role in there, and it's got an element of crispness to it, particularly towards the back of the palate. But when you're using Pilsner and Carapils malt in the beer, again, that's not overly surprising. But yeah, this is an interesting one from Gamma Brewing Company. Would I say that this is the best one that they've done? It's quite difficult to say, because, you know, they're all of the Gamma beers are a good, you know, a high standard, and it really, I think at this point it is just down to personal preference. You know, when I think back on the Gamma ones, it's quite hard to say what one has been my favourite, but I think this is good and I like it, and I wouldn't hesitate if this was one that was on offer. If I was only allowed to buy one Gamma beer and that one was on offer, you know, I would get it. You know, I would get it again. So yeah, make of that what you will. Quite a sort of a roundabout answer, I have to say. But yeah, a nice beer, this one, and I'm glad I was able to review it for you here on the channel. So let's leave it at that. This one was the Freak Wave, a 6.5% New England Hazy IPA, whatever you want to call it, from Gamma Brewing over in Copenhagen in Denmark. Cool to return to this brewery once again, and it's nice that we're starting to get some of their beers more regularly over here in Sweden too. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this one in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Gamma Brewing as well, and I will catch you guys very, very soon. Till the next time, slàinte, skål, cheers, make sure you check out Gamma Brewing.